All right, welcome to the first ever Duke Kentucky podcast, Kentucky Duke podcast. I don't know. This is the first time we're doing it. My guest today is Kenny Dennard. Kenny was a member of the Duke basketball program 1978 to 82. Is that correct?
81. Well, I mean, I matriculated in 77. That's a word meaning you enter college for you Kentucky folks. And then I graduated. I didn't graduate in 81. I got out in 81, and then I graduated officially in 86 after I came back after playing in the NBA in Italy for a little bit.
Okay, now I know there'll be some Duke fans watching it, but for Kentucky fans, and you thought that Leitner started all this Kentucky hate. You see how Kenny just took a jab at us here, so it never ends. But no, despite all that, we're good friends. He had an iconic game, actually season with Gene Banks back when they ended up at the Checker Dome, 1978, Final Four, final game. And unfortunately, you ran into a team of destiny that year, the Kentucky Wildcats, and Jack Gibbons' game of 41 points, where he was throwing them off the side of the backboard and everything like that. But
Yeah, he was on fire. I held him to 18, which I think was around his average. He got
held him to,
the other 23 on others.
exactly. But you got your revenge the next year, actually in 2 years. Was it 2 years? Yeah.
2 seasons later, we played you guys your freshman year at the opening game back when there weren't 18 different tournaments around the country. There was one opening game for the start to college season, the Naismith Hall of Fame game, Springfield, uh, Springfield,
Ma-
Massachusetts. Yeah.
yeah, Massachusetts. Yeah.
And then so
So,
we got a little bit of revenge that game, and then probably the sweeter revenge was your last game of your freshman year when we beat y'all at Rupp Arena to
so
make it to the Mid East regional final.
yeah, so you basically bookend in a very traumatic way my freshman season, my first game and last game of that season. So,
It
but
still wasn't equal to a national championship in '78. So Kentucky has that.
yeah, but things go in cycles. Duke is going to be going for, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later before we end. There's six championship. I didn't realize it was so many. So there were five under Coach K. Is that correct, Kenny?
Correct.
Okay. And it's amazing because Kentucky has eight, and we've been dry for 13 years. And before that, we were dry. But Duke and actually Connecticut, I think Connecticut has five now as well, don't they? Men's basketball.
I think they may have six.
They may have six. Okay. So a lot of parity. But well, here's a question I have right off the bat. How would you compare the Duke basketball program and the Kentucky basketball program? Where are the similarities? Where's the differences?
Well, interestingly enough, Tom, the whole world, as we all know, has changed dramatically since really quickly in the last 10 years, as opposed to 40 when we played 40 years when we played.
Yes.
So, there's no real comparison of the programs other than their historical blue blood significance. But, the last since, Cal came in and did the one and done thing and won the national championship with those freshmen. What was that, 2012, I guess?
Yeah, 13 years ago.
Yeah, and then Duke did it in 2015. Those are the only two teams that have won the national championship in the quote unquote one and done type of era. That's where, that it was a fantastic model for getting kids to the NBA and having a lot of excitement, but it didn't build the cohesive teamness that you saw that is needed to win national championships. But now that you have the one and done combined with the portal, look at if you look at what I mean, Kentucky obviously had to rebuild this year with the portal, whereas Duke had a bunch of good freshmen coming in or excellent freshmen coming in, and they put some really good veterans through the portal, and they had a couple of good returning guys who had experience. So that combination is kind of the formula now is to bring in some good young people, young freshmen, have some good transfers come over, and have some solid returning players. That seems to be the winning formula now.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've always been critical of the one and done, not because of the kids going to the NBA and making money, because you and I are both capitalists. It's a matter of we had lost what this program was about. We weren't a portal. We were more focused on, not we, but I'll say the past administration, more focused on the billions than the banners. And you could have both. I mean, Duke is exemplifying that this season. I think it's an anomaly. And I say that respectfully because you guys have some phenomenal freshmen this year. And so we had, we had 5 or 6 one and dones this year, but they were 50-year seniors, from the portal. So right. we kept with the one and done, but with a little
That's
different.
Right. That's right. Gene and I were Coach K. Our senior year was his first year, so technically we were his first one and dones, technically speaking, before anybody knew what that was. But no, I get what you're saying. But when you try to compare the traditions of the, really it's the name on the front is the same, but nothing else is the same. Truly, the way the game has changed, and it's going to change more. There's so much going on in the courts. There's all this money involved, but the thing I like about the NIL and the transfer portal, it gives players freedom. If they get caught up in a situation that's not conductive for them, they can move along without sitting out a year. Back in the old days, a transfer was a tough situation to go through because you had to sit out that year. So now with, it's really a free agency business now. And so I think for the kids, it's great. For the money is always going to put things out of whack, especially when there's so much of it, awash. But still, good programs. I mean, Duke hired a general manager. They're the first to do it. They're looking at it in a way that's very professional and yet keeping the collegiate, these kids at Duke are fun to watch. It's not an NBA squad by any stretch of the imagination, and neither is the Kentucky team. They're both fun to watch. I enjoyed watching Kentucky this year. I didn't enjoy them beating Duke earlier, but they did.
Yeah,
but
we had to get one in. We had to get one in. And that I think that was indicative of, you had how many freshmen are starters on the team and how many are coming off the bench that are contributors right now versus people from the transfer portal or whatever.
Well, at Duke, it's 3 freshman starters.
Flag, Knipple,
and Malawak.
Malawak, yeah.
So
and those are all 5-star recruits. So that's
and you got another 5-star player and another backup center who Mumba. I mean Gum. Well, I call him Gumby because it's easier to say.
Yeah, that's easier. Okay.
But you got Slim, which is Isaiah. I keep forgetting names. But anyway, we got 2 other freshmen that are very, very good and have added so much to this team and have come along. So, I mean, we wouldn't have beaten Alabama without Isaiah coming in and hitting those 6 threes. I mean, we were down a bunch, double digits, and he brought them back and they hung on to win. But again, that was December. Who cares? We're here now in April.
But now, how many people? Because it really looked dire last year for Duke. Because how many kids hit the portal last year?
I don't really.
Wasn't it like 7 or 8 players from Duke?
I don't know. I really don't. I don't. I just know. Here's again, since infinity, since I got out, and since they became good, the '86 team kind of set the new tone. Coach K had a good run. Well, I don't know how many Final Fours over the next 10, 12 years. Anyway, that I really have always said, let's see. Now, I don't care how good you are in high school, but until you come to practice in college and you get in with guys that are as good as you, maybe better, that you didn't play against in high school, and you may have been big shit in high school, but once you get to a real coach and a real program and a real team and learn how to fit in, and then September, October, and then November come around, that's when I start to notice what a team looks like, especially Duke. I never saw Zion play one time, and I saw some clips on the internet, but I never saw him play a full game or watch any kind of game until he played at Duke. And that was by purpose because I don't really care what you do in high school. So, some people come as Bill. There's been other guys who've come to Duke and transferred after a year because they couldn't handle the pressures of the team, or
Yeah.
maybe they felt like, or they just, if you have to fit what the team needs. And a lot of guys have only been, it's me, instead of team. So uh, that's what I wait to see is who comes in. I met a bunch of the guys last year, the freshmen this year. I met them last summer at the K Academy, which is Coach K's fantasy camp, and he invites a bunch of us old farts back to be part of it. Anyway, I met some of those guys, and I was very impressed with them, not just because they could play basketball and I watched them and they looked great, but when you shook your hand, they look you in the eye. I haven't seen that in 10, 20 years.
No,
Guys that just have been parents, the whole thing, they're all famous and going to make a lot of money, but they look you in the eye and shake your hand and kind of respect. It was really refreshing last summer to see Knipple and Cooper and all those guys that just really were outstanding people before I ever even looked at them as a basketball player.
see, that's even more impressive than the players that we met when Coach Pope had us back after he had assembled the team, and it was before March Madness. And Kobe Brea and Lamont Butler, who were both fifth-year seniors, good players, great players. And I got that same tap on the shoulder. They extended their hand, looked me in the eye, introduced themselves, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that I spent the most time with in that practice, but I was so impressed. But they were fifth-year seniors, and you're talking about freshmen. And I think that,
freshmen.
yeah,
Exactly. It was
incoming freshmen.
in the year before that, I remember in the summer before that, McCain was an incoming freshman, and he wasn't going to be, he was a great player, but nobody knew how good he was going to be. He got a slow start, but that summer I saw him play and met him and said, this kid has it. It's just that it factor. I mean, it's not the Cooper it factor, but McCain has a it factor. He's got something that's personally his, whether it's, all the outside the court stuff, but on the court has the same, drive to win, the same, a lot of these fast paced guards. And I mean, the game has gotten so much faster than when we played. So much guys are so much stronger. It's being also, the officiating is they allow them to be more physical than the old days. I sound like an old fart. Well, I'm 67 this year, so I am an old fart. And I thought it would take longer to get this sold, by the way. Um, the whole thing is the game is just, it's really moved up. So these freshmen, when they come in and make a difference, and there's a number of them around the country, not just at Duke, but it's refreshing. And you hope the NIL packages are enough to keep them more than 1 year. I couldn't imagine Cooper Flag staying.
He's saying that, but you know what?
Look,
He's just being a good sport. If he comes back, I'll go there and kick his behind to say no, and not because I don't want Kentucky to not play against him. It's just to go.
Well,
Go
no,
there.
I mean, the point is college is the best. It was the best years of my life, and as far as sports and the youthfulness, and it's not wasted on the young if you live it like we did. The I think there's a chance. NIL money. I know you talk about it a lot. We all do. NIL money is a kind of a luring possibility to keep somebody like Cooper Flag and Knipple. Who knows? I don't know. But today's April Fool's Day that we're taping this, and
Yeah.
there were a bunch of reports that all those guys said they're coming back. And I knew it had to be April Fool's, but I didn't know it when I opened up my Instagram and oh wow. And then I went, oh yeah, today's April Fool's. But let's just get through the weekend for us Duke fans. All you Duke fans out there, just think about Saturday. Don't think about anything else. Don't
Well,
think about what we're going. A lot of us are going to San Antonio. I have no plans past Saturday night. And then once that happens, we'll see what happens.
do you think with this portal that there'll ever be a chance that a Duke player either transfers to UNC or Kentucky?
Maybe. I mean, it's not against I mean, it's probably against the basketball gods, and all the fans would just go crazy, but it could happen. I just don't see it happening. I mean, do you?
No, but I was thinking about that. That'd be very interesting. And imagine, and this would make it even more interesting, that a former Duke player had a son that would go to like UNC. Let's say that would be almost like treason.
Well, in the fans' eyes, but whatever's best for that kid's future is between him and his parents. And I know that all the adult grown ass men that have played at Duke and played in the NBA and have kids like the Boozer twins and that type of thing. There's guys that do have kids. It's you want what's best for your kid. And if what was best was to go to North Carolina, then I don't think there would be a problem. Thank God they didn't choose that. But coaches have been moving around through. I mean, we got Jay Lucas from you guys.
Yeah.
Now he's at Miami and left. That was kind of weird how it ended
Wait,
the
he was
season.
at Kentucky?
Yeah,
You're
yeah. He was under Cal.
okay. Now you want to see, here's a perfect example how disconnected us players were. Never met him, didn't know him, so I have no opinion about him. Now, isn't that sad, Kenny? That's
No,
how
it's just
disconnected we were as players. Didn't know. I don't, there are probably 30 to 40% of NBA players in from Kentucky that if you put them in a lineup, I couldn't name who they are. And that's the same with my teammates. I won't say what teammates because you'd be shocked, but it's the same thing. We were so disconnected. That's not going to happen anymore. But when you tell me that, I'm embarrassed and we're recording this. So that's sad.
well,
That's
no, it's
really
but
sad.
we do have lives too. I mean,
Yeah.
plus a lot of these guys, these assistants are not the head coach. They're the ones doing the recruiting, the scouting. They're working their tails off so one day they can become head coaches. And so Jay Lucas came over to Duke, sat 3 years, the first 3 years or almost 3 years, with next to John, and made a ton of contributions. And from what I never met him, I said hey, but I don't know him. But still, I wish him very well at Miami. And I think there's one where you've got an assistant coach at Duke going to Miami to be the head coach, and he leaves after they win the ACC tournament. So that's very different. That's a different scenario. Nobody would ever predicted. It hasn't affected Duke one iota because if he'd have left in November, it may have been something. You know what I mean? As far as that
Right.
discombobulation, but they had built an identity and the word. There's kind of these new magic words they use on TV and post game interviews, like they're connected and trust and all that stuff. But at this point, the teams that are still here through the tournament and to the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight, they're all connected. They all trust each other, or they couldn't have gotten here. And now we've gotten to the Final Four, which who knew it's been what 18 years, 17 years since the last time all four number one seeds made it. So it's just it's an interesting time to say the least. But watching players move around between, I remember this is our third year where you've got these transfers, and I remember watching Jay Billis, my buddy, call a game, and when he was saying this guy, started at so and so, went to here, and now he's here. He's three different schools in 3 years. But it's not even a thing anymore. Nobody's really. They just want these. I mean, the coaches want to win, the players want to win, they want to find places they can win, and the fans want them to win. So that's kind of how simple it is. We want to win. Everybody
Well,
wants.
let's talk about Duke announcers. Jay Billis gets immunity when he comes to Lexington to do game day because he's been very accommodating towards the Cats and everything. So he gets immunity.
Plus,
Jay,
he loves that ice cream you'll have there.
yeah, I know. I've had that ice cream. It's no different than low grade Dairy Queen ice cream, but it's fabulous. And they used to have one vendor area. Now they have several.
Yeah.
But back to the announcers, the guy that still has it in for us, and I don't know why, is Jay Williams. You talk to a Kentucky fan.
Jay's a good friend. He's what we call a shock jock type announcer. He's a button pusher. That's just the way that's his makeup, and that's what his brand is. It's gotten him into some heated situations in the past with different, players on all levels, not high school, obviously, but college and pro. But the point is, Jay's Jay. So he'll say things that, may be a little controversial. I'm sure. I mean, he said something, what was it, last year? That he said if the portal were around, he might have transferred to Carolina. Do you remember that? He said that, something like,
No, that's a wow.
yeah.
Okay.
No, he said that, and everybody's like, "Oh, Jay, what are you doing? What the
Wow.
hell?"
That's a
It's
little
I
edgy.
call it's called clickbait. That's what it is.
Mhm.
And Jay, I love you if you're listening, which I doubt you are. He's the king of clickbait to get you to pay attention. And there's a lot of people out there saying stuff, sports heads, talking heads, different announcers, first take, get up, all the Fox Sports people. I mean, it's all about eyeballs and earlobes and eardrums is who can get an audience. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in with the internet, the social media, and all of that has driven us into that type of corral. We're just, if anybody hadn't seen the Social Dilemma movie, it's a documentary about how the
Yeah.
eight major players in the algorithmic space developed their products for, Instagram, Snapchat, Google, Facebook, etc. That's a movie you got to see if you hadn't seen it. It
Yeah.
basically explains how we've gotten to where we are today in these, information silos and bubbles and being driven towards them by social media algorithms. Sorry,
Well,
I went
imagine
off.
if,
My
no,
bad.
that's fine. People want to hear that, and so do I. Imagine if you and I were sitting up there on either NBA, whatever Barkley and Shaq is on. We'd have a good time up there, and we could just spend whatever we needed to, but also keep within what corporate is saying. You need to tweak them on this or whatever. So,
Well, they earned that right to their, top 50 or whatever number of top 50 players ever. I mean,
mhm.
Shaq and Charles, and now Kenny Smith. Kenny's been there longer because he got a start in there, but he can't even say the word Duke. He says
Yeah.
the team up north. I mean, he's one of those kind of weirdos that he's really. I mean, he just acts like. I mean, I have so many Carolina friends, and many of them know who they are. Some of them don't. But I have many Carolina friends, and we give each other shit the day before the game or the day we'll text each other and during the game. But that's it. It's like it's over after that. It's
Well, I've got an idea. Like they had the G7 or G whatever meeting in Pittsburgh a few years ago. We need to have a T4 meeting, and that's a meeting of heated rivals: UK, U of L, Louisville, and Duke and North
Mhm.
Carolina all meet in Pittsburgh, and then we can come together as one.
That's funny. That's brilliant.
Because I never had a problem with Louisville because I didn't grow up in Kentucky. I had a problem with Indiana because that's where I grew up, and people were hoping that I would go there. And not that Bobby Knight would have been too tough for me. It's just I didn't want to play for him, and I wanted to play for, Kentucky and Joe B. What was your feeling, if you were born and raised in North Carolina, choosing Duke over North Carolina or State or any of the other teams there?
Well, it was a different time before, I mean, there was only one real mega scout and was named Howard Garfinkel, and I got lucky enough to get invited. Neil McGahee got me invited to five-star camp when I was between my junior and senior year, and I did well. Made all-star team, first guy below the Mason-Dixon line, if you can imagine people still use that term. But well, I was the first Southern guy to ever make the All Stars in 1976 at five star, and I got literally it parlayed into about 150 scholarship offers that week from that week's effort. I committed to Duke after as soon as I was on campus for the weekend. I just knew this was me. I mean, it felt from my gut to the tips of my curly hair I had when I had a perm. I knew this is where I was needed to be, and I was just kind of had to play it cool. Gene Banks was on the same recruiting weekend trip, and then a guy named Pete Budko, who eventually went
Yep.
to Carolina. But as soon as I got back home, I called Coach Foster and said, I'm committing now. Because he said, if you commit early, we won't recruit over you. Whereas Coach Smith really, What was he going to do? Bench Mike O'Corn for 3 years? You know, I think that would have been a fun try for me to go for, but not probable. And then Duke had some, Duke was last for 4 straight years, or tied for last from 73 to 77. So even though Coach Foster had been there a couple of years and was building something, it was Gene and I, and the way that team came together to catch lightning in a
Yeah.
bottle, which was immortalized in a book called Forever's Team by the late great John Feinstein, who we just lost a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So that those are special memories and special moments, and they really did help create, that team helped create a fantastic new Duke awareness, because the 60s and the black and white TV days, there wasn't a whole lot of whoop-de-doo except UCLA and Carolina maybe and some others, but Duke had some decent teams in the 60s, but that was the start of something. It really
Yes.
started something in 78. We had a couple of more good years, as we talked about a little bit, and then this guy named Mike Krzyzewski came in, and nobody knew how to pronounce his name, and he had a tough start, but he finally got it together. And boy, now I remember telling somebody after 86, they're going to start naming stuff after him. Took a while, but they eventually did start naming stuff after. He's got a bunch of really cool stuff going on. His legacy at Duke as an ambassador, as well as all the things he's done for raising money. He's raised billions for Duke.
Well, I don't know if I told you this before, shared it, but I watched him play in college one game in Morgantown, West Virginia, because my brother was WVU's first 7-footer. So that's when Bobby Knight was the coach of Army, and Coach K was a player on that team. So I actually watched that game at probably 1968, 69, something like that. And so that's my little Coach K story.
Yeah, that's a pretty random abstract. Do you have any memories of him? Did he do anything, or just you knew he was on the?
No, I just knew he was on the team,
Yeah.
but Bobby had 5 technicals that game. That's still when you can have, I believe so. I think it was 5 technicals, and it just kept, teeing him up, teeing him up.
That's
So,
funny. I guess they didn't have the 2 technical. You're out of the
right.
out of their rule.
Now I may be wrong, because you know how it is when we get older, we start extrapolating out, but it was quite a few. And I think he stayed in the game too, but I got to go back and look at the stats. I'll just have Chat GPT do a search for me and see. But yeah, that's where I saw Coach K.
You use that evil machine, Chappie. All those, everything that we're doing is being collected. So buyer beware. Just don't give them too much.
Yeah, well, it's like your cell phone. Everything you do on your cell phone is collected, and
That's what I mean. But don't put ChatGPT or any of that stuff on your phone. Then it's over. Then
yeah.
it's all.
I mean, we're
Anyway,
being tracked and
not
everything,
paranoid.
and
I'm not paranoid, but they are out to get me. I know that.
yeah. Well, I think I have 30 minutes on this one. I got a pop-up that said it, and I thought it was maybe 40 minutes, and hopefully we can go 40 minutes here. But I do want to ask you about this team, just in case we get cut off, and coming up this weekend, because we're going to have some more of these conversations. What is your prediction for this weekend for Duke and the whole Final Four overall?
I'm excited to see both games. I'm really, I went to see the Alabama game before the Duke game in Newark. I was in the stadium. I was really happy I got to see Alabama have that record performance, because it's kind of like, I knew when you go 25 for 51 for threes and you have 114 points, and then we're your next opponent. It's like Robin Williams in The World According to Garp, when he pulls up with his wife. They're looking at this house, and a plane crashes into it right before they go into it. And he goes, "I'll take it." What are the odds that ever happen again? So that was exciting to see that great game, because knowing that, and of course, everything, the law of averages do win. The next game, Alabama didn't shoot like that. So I'm not making any predictions. I know Houston is a bunch of grown ass men.
Yeah,
They're tough, but we're tough. We're just not grown ass. We've got a few grown ass men. We've got a power point guard in Sion James, who I'd put up against anybody. He's fast, he's strong, he can hold his own. We've got a center I'll put up against, or 2 centers put up against anybody. And we've got the transfer from Syracuse, who has been out with some shoulder stuff, but he's played back in the last couple of games. So If we can stay out of foul trouble, I think we've got a good chance, you know, but Houston's very, very strong defensive team. And it depends on how the refs call it. I mean, you start calling, you get a couple guys with 2 or 3 fouls early, changes everything for both teams. So I don't make predictions. I'm hoping Duke wins, and I'm hoping I get to state on Monday. Now, as far as the other side of the coin, Florida's so strong. How can you pick against them? I mean, I can't pick against Florida. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
You know, what's interesting is Kentucky beat both Florida and Duke this year. That, I mean, it only means something because it happened, but in the whole totality of the season, no. But that has shown how much Florida has grown and how much Duke has grown. And yes, I'm with you. Houston has old men that are tough. So they'll either come and do a spanking and it'll be evident right away, or they will attempt to do a spanking and Duke will be resilient. And now you're going to have a game. So I can't make a prediction. I thought that there would be more upsets this year in the big dance, kind of like there were in the SEC was a bloodbath this year.
Yeah.
But with the NCAA, things have been tracking the way they should be. But now we got the Final Four, and Kelvin Sampson is old school with going to ground and pound, and you got Shire, the new style coach, and I'm cheering for just a good game. So I'm not an
Well, I'm
anti-Duke
cheering for
guy.
Duke. I'm cheering for Duke. And
Yeah.
I live in Houston, so God bless them if they win.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot about
So
that.
I will, if they beat us, I will pull for them, but I don't want them to beat us. That's simple. But
Right.
still, long story longer, like you say, this has been a great season. It's been one of those seasons that you haven't seen a number one stay number one like that, like Auburn did as long as they did this year. There's a lot of upside, and this weekend I think it'll be probably one of the better rated Final Fours. And San Antonio is my second favorite city. I've been going to Final Fours. I was on Coaches versus Cancer board for 15 years and went to all those Final Fours. I've been to every city basically for the Final Four. And New Orleans is my favorite city for Final Four, and San Antonio is my second favorite city. The Riverwalk and all the
Yeah.
culture is just a fabulous. Houston's my worst town. There's been a couple of Final Fours here. Everything's so spread out. There's nothing connected. It's all disjointed. But San Antonio is going to be a fun weekend, and hopefully Duke can pull it off. And again, let's work on that. I like your G4 uh, powwow in Pittsburgh or wherever, bringing the rivalries, having like guys come from each school and having seminars and
Yeah.
workshops and I think that'd be a hoot. Sign me up.
I'm going to propose the Duke one to the people at Kentucky because it would be great for both schools and maybe do almost like a home and home. And this would be prior to the season. I don't know. Players would want to do it. Rivalries and, kind of manufactured hate aside, it would be real good and the fans would love it. And what a
Yeah.
good
Well, I
time to
mean,
do it, like
I,
now.
I would do, Phil Ford and I are great buddies, and we were teammates. I was 2 years a teammate with him in Kansas City. Hawkeye Whitney, I think he's no longer with us. Rest in peace. But there's a lot of guys. Al Wood. I mean, all those guys from those days. Mike O'Corin, Spanarkel, and I sat together at the Eastern Regional Final, and we were talking about Mike, and because I never got to know him, I just had to hate him because I had to play against him and blah blah blah. And they were high school teammates. So I think that'd be a great idea. Somebody out there, if it's not you, you ought to get working on it, get a business plan together so you can make
Yeah.
some money putting this little powwow together. It could be really good TV too,
It'd
especially
be
if you had like a throwdown at the end where you start getting a ring, put a ring out there, and a bunch of fat and old guys start fighting.
Well, I still would love to play, but I haven't stepped on the court in over 20 years. And even though I'm at my playing weight from college, and I definitely won't do it because about 3 years ago, Jack Givens blew out his Achilles. And I said, well, how'd that happen on one of these charity games at Rupp Arena? He
Yeah.
said, I shot a 3-pointer. Nobody's guarding me. I turned to run
Oh,
down the court and like,
snap.
pow.
Yeah, it sounds
Like,
like a brick. It sounds like two blocks hitting together.
yeah. So he was out. So I said, okay, Jack, you just secured my never playing in those games again because it's just not worth it. So, but well, we would have a good time. And how do people, if they want to follow you, what's the best way for them to follow you, Kenny?
Well, they got to find me first. No, but you mean online? I'm
Yeah.
on. Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I'm not on X anymore since Musk got when he bought it. I got off. I just not a fan. But I think Facebook, Ken Dennard or Kenny Dennard. I've got two sites. One's kind of a fanny site. The other one's more of a. But all of them are just for pictures, and
Yeah.
I don't push any kind of agenda other than let's go Duke.
Yeah. One of these times, if you ever have anything interesting on memorabilia like I've been posting, you probably have some of this almost identical things of me. But let's see. I want to see how much time we have here. Yeah, we got 2 minutes. Our Final Four watch from 1984 is the biggest piece of garbage I've ever seen. I mean, I think I can crush the band, which is like hollow with my fingers. The box
Mhm.
is beautiful, but that's what we got for the Final Four for 1984. What did you get in 1978 for being a runner up?
Well, we had a runner up. We had a watch that mine got stolen out of my car one day. A couple weeks later, somebody called uh, and the basketball office at Duke, it was like over the summer that year, and the pawn shop had bought it back for $20, and I went and gave them $20 for the watch back.
Oh,
But that was
okay.
But no, I mean, and I don't have any idea where that watch is today. I mean, I don't have a lot of that. I have, I mean, when we had tournament stuff and,
Yeah.
won the Big Four tournament 4 years or 2 or 3 years or whatever. But was never important to me. I have a couple of jerseys left from the pros, one from the Nuggets, one from the Kings. I've given away, I had 8 jerseys from Duke that I gave away to friends or donated to charities for stuff. The only thing I don't really have much memorabilia, which I've got some trophies in storage, but I have a great memory. I have some videos that I have.
Yeah.
Oh, I do have the YouTube channel. Yeah. So if you
Okay.
YouTube Kenny Dennard YouTube channel,
I'll link
not
it up. I'll link that
there's a
up
bunch
because
of
we're,
old videos. Yeah, there's a bunch of old videos up there. The backwards dunk, the undercut of Buck Williams,
okay.
allegedly undercut. There's
Yeah.
no foul. And there's all kinds of video that you would never see before and it's pretty grainy because of back then it
Yeah.
was over the air with rabbit ears receptions. So YouTube and Facebook are the best ways to follow me.
And right before we leave, I appreciate you, brother. This was great. We'll do it again. And good luck to Duke and you this